Hey guys, Ashley here. I want you to check out this really cool podcast called Historical AF Podcast. It's where an actual historian talks about what she thinks is the coolest stories in history and adds quite a comedic flair to them. So check out her promo right after this.
Hello there, Gigawater Gang. I'm Keena, the host of the boozy and delightfully foul-mouthed comedy podcast, Historical AF. I'm a nerdy public historian that is joined by a special guest each week to deliver funny, weird, spooky, and morbid historical nuggets you never knew you needed in your ear holes. Past topics have included the magical manhood of Russia's mad monk Rasputin, my hot take that aliens did not build the pyramids, serial killers that both my parents happened to meet as children. Listen, I know what you're thinking. Keena, how do you even exist right now? Also, who was it? All right, I'll tell you. Spoiler alert, it was John Wayne Gacy and Mark Allen Smith. Anywho, we can't forget the spooky. I've covered topics ranging from the ghost of Anne Boleyn to the night marchers in Hawaii. Don't look at them, guys. If you do, you have to strip naked and you have to lay on the dirt. Them's the rules. You can listen and subscribe to Historical AF wherever you get your podcasts. You can also follow on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Historical AF Pod. And finally, you can check out the website for links to listen, sources, because citing is sexy, photos, and more at historicalafpodcast.com. Okay, bye!
This is Histories and Mysteries. I'm your host, Ashley, and this is
Jessica.
Ooh, that's so pretty.
I'm like, oh, Ashley's like very vigorous right now and just like enthusiastic. I should do something.
That's so pretty.
I didn't know what was coming out of my mouth until it did. So, anyways, oh my goodness. On today's episode, Ashley is going to be talking about the Westboro Baptist Church. So be prepared to want to punch whatever you're listening to this on.
Yes.
And I'm going to be talking about the notorious clown killer, Mr. John Wayne Gacy. So
Yay.
have
So
fun
all
with
around,
this
it's going to be a great episode.
They're both horrible in their own ways.
Oh my gosh, I have to tell you guys this story. I'm so stupid. So I have a work laptop and I have a personal laptop. And like I wasn't even paying attention and I grabbed a laptop and I was doing research for this, and the Westboro Baptist Church, they don't have like a nice website that's like westborobaptist.com or westboro.com. No, their website is God hates FAGS, I refuse to say that word, .com, right? So I'm clicking through this website, so it's going to show up like multiple times, and I realize I'm on my fucking work laptop.
Oh dear.
So now in my browsing history, there's going to be like 5 or 6 instances of God hates FAGS.com. I panicked.
I'm sure it's fine.
I panicked. I got to tell my boss on Monday and be like, I'm so sorry. I grabbed the wrong laptop and I didn't realize it, which sounds ridiculous, but it's really what happened.
And you can't delete the browser history either.
No, because it's managed by the company.
Super.
Yeah. So I have to live through that and being like, hey, boss, sorry about that. And then, like, I was thinking, too, like, if they monitor, because they say they monitor it, but, like, do they really? But if they do, like, someone's going to see that and be like, man, this girl really hates, the LGBTQIA community. And I'm like, no, I know.
She doesn't.
I don't. So, yeah, I got that to look forward to tomorrow at work.
Fun.
But I did it for you guys.
Exactly. She loves you guys.
So my sources were obviously their website, Britannica, right? Britannica. And then I actually got a lot of use out of Wikipedia this time because they had like each of their protests listed. So I have those as well. Usually I
Cool.
just use Wikipedia to like reinforce something, but this one was actually really good. So
Nice.
let's get right into this hellhole of a hate group here.
No.
I know it's awful. It's gonna make you so mad. Um, so it was founded in 1955 by Fred Phelps. And the hate group considers itself a primitive Baptist church, but Baptist church do not want to claim them. Fred Phelps, he started out as a preacher for the Baptist church. And they said, hey, we're going to open up this new church in Topeka, Kansas. Can you be the preacher for it? And he's like, sure. And then he started kind of getting more and more radical. And then he kind of created his own and called it the Westboro Baptist Church and separated himself from his original Baptist church.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't want to. Us Baptists don't want to claim him.
Yeah, I don't think I don't believe that the Baptist Church aligns themselves with any of these values. So fast forward real quick. He died in 2014. So he's gone, but don't you worry, Jessica, because he bred enough hate within his own family that his family took over.
Oh, super fun.
Yeah. It's widely believed actually that the majority of this hate group is his extended family, because in 2016 there's only about 70 members.
Wow.
Yeah, so they think it's mostly the Phelps family. So it's just this like family of hate. But well before his death, this hate group began picketing in 1991 in Gage Park in Topeka, Kansas. This park was widely known for homosexual activity, and they decided that this was going to be their hill that they died on, and so they decided to picket this park. And after the picketing, they decided that, hey, you know what? That was really fun. I really enjoyed being a hateful, mean person. So I'm going to take it up a notch and picket at Matthew Shepard's funeral. Have you heard of the Matthew Shepard case?
No.
I think I'm going to do him a little bit later on. It's horrific. It's Matthew Shepard was a gay man living in, I can't remember the state off the top of my head, but he was basically murdered like pretty horribly for being gay.
That's awful.
Yeah, so they picketed his funeral because, they're great people. And they decided to picket at funerals of soldiers as well. They had signs. I'll get into that a little bit. They had signs at these protests saying, "Thank God for dead soldiers."
What?
Yeah. So they're real good people. And unfortunately, their hate speech was ruled as protected under the Freedom of Speech Act. But this angered many legislators. They actually created what they called a lawful buffer zone around funerals.
Good.
So that they can't protest within that buffer zone.
Good.
And Jessica, you're going to be really happy about this. Canada and the UK doesn't let members of them in at all.
Yeah, because we rock.
Yeah, they're like, nah, thanks. You can stay in America where everybody's crazy. So all this picketing and protesting at all these soldiers' funerals and all these, other poor victims' funerals cost a lot of money. It costs them about $200,000 a year to do this. So how do they afford this? Well, this also helps them out in other ways because Fred Phelps founded a law firm because he was actually I know he was a preacher. I can't remember if he was a lawyer, if he just founded a law firm and like hired lawyers, but most of his kids are lawyers now. So they all work at this law firm and they use this firm to sue and make money that way. And also each children is expected to give 10% of their salary to this hate group.
Mm-hmm.
So they have money that way. And one lawsuit, this makes me so mad. I just want to punch everything in the world. One lawsuit against the Westboro Baptist Church was brought up by Albert Snyder, who had to endure protest at his Marine son's funeral. So he sued them for several things. And the case went all the way to the Supreme Court, who ultimately decided that it was in the Westboro Baptist Church right to protest.
Oh, okay.
And ruled that Albert had to pay the Westboro Baptist Church $16,500 in legal fees.
Wow.
Then the church decided to pursue it further and sue him for another $100,000 in fees through district courts. I looked everywhere and I could not find what the outcome of was that. Could not find what the outcome of that was. But yeah, so this man lost his son, had to endure their protests, had to endure the court case that he lost, and then had to pay the money. It was nice that most of the money that he had to pay, people donated. So
That's good.
yeah. So that's how they get their money, is through slimy, awful, gross things like that. And let's talk about them a little bit. So this is where I got onto their website. And they're like, if you Google Westboro Baptist Church, you know how Google gives you the link and there's like a little description underneath it?
Yeah.
So their description says Psalms 5:5 states, God hates, FAGS, and all proud sinners.
Oh,
It actually says, the foolish shall not stand in thy sight. Thou hatest all workers of iniquity.
nice.
But they translated that to God hates the F word and all proud sinners.
Lovely.
Yeah. So as I said, their website is literally godhatesthefword.com. And they believe that COVID-19 is a promised plague from God, that 9/11 and the shooting of an elementary school was retribution by God.
Wow.
They believe that God not only hates the sin, but also hates the sinner. So they believe that he truly hates people.
Which is like the complete opposite of what the Bible says, but
100%, but okay, you do you.
yeah.
Their site also says that they have conducted 67,521 demonstrations since June of 1991 in 1,054 cities.
Wow. You're not going to list them all, are you?
Every single one. Buckle up.
Imagine. They're going to hang up on you.
No. And I have here written in my notes, but don't you worry, Jessica. Their hate isn't just for members of the LGBTQIA community and soldiers. It also extends to Jewish people, Islam, Mormons, and Catholics.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so
Our
I'm
poor...
hated in there.
Oh, yeah, I'm not.
I'm Catholic. Yeah, so you're not hated. You could join. Jessica, you could join.
I'd rather like shoot myself in the face. So, yeah.
So they do talk a lot too about like wives and how they must obey their husbands.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that they wrote was about 4 things about wives behaving their husbands. And I'm just going to like paraphrase them, or kind of read them / paraphrase them. But it says, in domestic arrangements, the husband is to be regarded as the head of the family and has a right to direct as to the style of living, the expenses of the family, and the clothing. In regards to the laws which are to regulate the family, he is the head. It is his to say what is to be done, in what way the children are to employ themselves, and to give directions in regards to their education. In business manners, the wife is to submit to the husband. She may counsel with them if he chooses, but the affairs of business and property are under his control and must be left at his disposal.
Nice.
In everything except that which relates to conscience and religion, he has authority, but there his authority ceases. He has no right to require her to commit an act of dishonesty, to convene to wrongdoing, to visit a place of amusement which her conscience tells her is wrong, nor has he a right to interfere with the proper discharge of her religious duties. So that's good.
I thought the whole discharge thing was going somewhere else, but
um yeah, so that's nice, but um and then they also talk about, like, while the husband has authority over the wife and a right to command in all cases that do not pertain to the conscience or proper religion, his commands should be reasonable and proper. He has no right to require anything wrong or contrary to the will of God. And where commands begin in this relation, happiness usually ends. And the moment a husband requires a wife to do anything, it's usually a signal of departing or departed affection and peace. So basically, what they go on to say is that the wife should just know what he wants, and therefore he shouldn't have to command her to do anything.
that's good.
Yeah.
Right?
So they talk about why they preach at funerals. So they said that they preach at funerals to warn the people who are still living that unless they repent, they will likewise perish. When people go to funerals, it is one of the few times that they have sincere, sober thoughts of mortality, heaven, hell, eternity, etc. on their minds. It's the perfect time to warn them of the things to come. And why they protest fallen soldier funerals says, when a nation rises up in pride against God, one of the ways that God punishes the nation is by killing their men of war. She hath been proud against the Lord, against the Holy One of Israel. Therefore shall her young men fall in the streets, and all her men of war shall be cut off in that day, said the Lord. Soldiers' funerals often become more of a patriotic prep rally than they do anything else. Rather than mourning the death of someone who willingly fought for a nation awash in sin at every level, those present at such occasions should rather mourn deeply and with great shame for their sins, as the same God who took the breath of life of those who have fallen shortly will take ours. What state of heart will you have when the Lord comes to take your breath of life? So basically, they're saying that it's their fault for dying.
But like that's not their response. Like, ugh. It's not their place. Like if people want to celebrate and be joyous and like not make it a sad event, they should have the ability to do that.
Right. Yeah. But
Ugh.
apparently they don't. They say that if you're a soldier, you're basically fighting for sinful reasons, so you're sinful.
Okay.
I would be interested to know how they felt about, like, those that were drafted, like, where it wasn't their choice to be in, like, if
Yeah.
they still feel the same way, but
Yeah.
whatever. Either way, it's stupid.
It's really stupid.
Yeah. Alright, so these are some of their more well-known picketing that they did. Um, on January 25th, 2004, they picketed 5 churches, 3 Catholic and 2 Episcopalian, and the federal courthouse for what Phelps said was their part in legitimizing same-sex marriage in Iowa. On January 15th, 2006, they protested a memorial for the Sago mine disaster victims, claiming that the mining accident was God's revenge against the U.S. for its tolerance of homosexuality.
What?
In July of 2005, they declared their intention to picket the memorial service of Carrie French in Boise, Idaho. French was 19 when she was killed on June 5th in Kirkuk, Iraq, where she served as an ammunition specialist.
Okay.
Phelps Sr. said, our attitude towards what's happening with the war is the Lord is punishing his evil nation by abandoning all moral imperatives that are worth a dime. On January 26, 2008, they traveled to Jacksonville, North Carolina, home of Camp Lejeune, to protest the United States Marine Corps in the wake of the murder of Maria Lauterbach. 5 women protested, stomping on the American flag and shouting slogans such as 1, 2, 3, 4, God hates the Marine Corps.
Oh my goodness.
On February 2nd, 2008, they picketed during the funeral of a Mormon spiritual leader, Gordon B. Hinckley, a former president of the Church of the Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Salt Lake City, Utah. On May 14, 2008, 2 days after the 2008 Sichuan earthquake, which claimed the lives of at least 70,000 people. They issued a press release thanking God for the heavy loss of life in China, praying for many more earthquakes to kill many more thousands of impudent and ungrateful Chinese.
What?
Yeah.
Holy crap. Okay.
Um, most anti-abortion activists avoided the funeral of OB-GYN Dr. George Tiller, who was assassinated on May 31st, 2009, held at the Wichita College Hill United Methodist Church. It was attended by 900 mourners. However, 17 members of the Westboro Baptist Church picketed. They were kept at 500 feet or 150 meters distance by police. The protesters held signs that said, "God sent the shooter, abortion is a bloody murder, and baby killer in hell." On May 8th, 2009, they protested 3 Jewish sites in Washington, D.C., including Anti-Defamation League, ADL offices, the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum, and the city's largest synagogue. Margie Phelps, daughter of Pastor Fred Phelps, led the protest, holding signs stating that God hates Israel, Jews killed Jesus, America is doomed, Israel is doomed, and ADL Jew bullies.
Lovely.
They also picketed the singer Michael Jackson's funeral.
What?
Yeah, they recorded a song called God Hates the World, an adaptation of, his song We Are the World.
Yeah.
In May of 2010, they picketed the funeral of heavy metal vocalist Ronnie James Dio in Los Angeles, saying they believed the singer worshipped Satan. There's no evidence of that, and his wife said he was a very peaceful man.
Okay.
In January of 2011, they announced they would picket the funeral of Christina Green, a 9-year-old victim of the 2011 Tucson shooting, in which Representative Gabrielle Giffords was also non-fatally shot. In response, the Arizona legislature passed an emergency bill to ban protests within 300 feet of a funeral service, and Tucson residents made plans to shield the funeral from protesters.
Like, why were they at this little girl's funeral?
9 years old.
Like, why?
It didn't say. But it did say the group canceled plans to hold a protest during the memorial in exchange for airtime on a radio talk show.
They're such assholes.
Oh, I know.
Like, 9-year-old little girl. Let the parents friggin' grieve.
Oh, I know. According to the university officials, between 700 and 1,200 students amassed to counter 4 Westboro Baptist Church picketers who appeared at the campus after the event. Jaleel Phelps explained to Lewis Thoreau in her interview for the American's Most Hated Family in Crisis that she and other members of the Westboro Baptist Church picketed at the funeral of a Muslim man's wife simply because the man had witnessed and scolded them for intentionally burning a copy of the Quran in public the week earlier. I have a couple more. On May 29, 2001, I think I wrote intended, but I'm pretty sure that's supposed to be attended. Oh no, they intended to protest in Joplin, Missouri at the memorial service for the victims of the May 22nd, 2011 tornado that leveled large portions of the town. Those intending to protest the memorial service for President Obama's speech given there, or both, were refused entry into the venue by hundreds of local regional residents, including a large group of bikers from the Patriot Guard Riders, who I'm going to talk about in a bit here.
Okay.
On October 5th, 2011, Fred Phelps' daughter Margie announced via her Twitter account that the Westboro Baptist Church would be picketing Apple founder Steve Jobs' funeral. CBS News and the Washington Post noted the irony in the fact that Margie used an iPhone to tweet that. On December 16th, 2012, they said that they intended to picket at the funeral of the victims of the Sandy Hook Elementary School shootings. But the online hacktivist group Anonymous and several other groups responded by organizing a human wall to shield the victims' families. On May 20th, 2013, they tweeted praising God for the 2013 Moore tornado and that they would protest the funeral of the victims. On the last one I have is on May 20th, 2011, they were present at the Arlington National Cemetery Memorial Day services as part of their Thank God for Dead Soldiers campaign.
Oh, lovely.
A counter protest included members of the KKK.
Lovely.
So you got the KKK against the Westboro Baptist Church.
That's fascinating.
Who would win in a fight?
I don't even know who I would want to win in the fight.
Right? Right now they have a sign outside their church because they still have a church in Topeka, Kansas. They have service every Sunday at 11:30 a.m. So if, one day you really want to hear some hate, they're there. And their sign outside the church says, "Thank God for the COVID-19 pandemic."
Oh my goodness.
Oh, I'm sorry. I do have two more. Westboro announced its intent to picket the funeral of Nelson Mandela.
What?
Claiming he was going to hell for committing adultery by remarrying after his divorce.
Oh my goodness.
And finally, they celebrated the 2016 shooting at the Orlando gay nightclub that left 49 people dead and 53 others injured. On June 18th, 2016, members picketed after the attack, but around 200 people blocked the view of the picketing.
Good.
So, obviously, there's been a lot of people that try and block them and go against them. And this is so petty. I love it so much. On July 14th, 2013, members of the Satanic Temple performed a pink mass ritual over the grave of Fred Phelps' mother. The group said that the mass ritual would turn the dead woman into a posthumous. Thank you, posthumous lesbian.
Oh, lovely.
So they're like, haha, we turned your mother into a lesbian. And then kind of like a joke Facebook page about like a satirical. I cannot talk, and I also had that word last week that I could not say. Satirical Facebook page about God raised $80,000 from fans to post a billboard in Topeka that says God loves gays. And then there's also the group called the Patriot Guard Riders. And they are basically like this group of bikers. And they'll attend any funeral at the request of the family and stand between the family and the protesters. They will not only physically stand between them, but they'll also hold up American flags to block further views, as well as sing patriotic songs or rev their engines to block out the noise from the Westboro Baptist Church.
Oh, that's sweet.
Yeah. So, and I know there's other groups like that will follow them around and block their protests. So, that is my story on the horrible Westboro Baptist Church. And I don't even want to call them a church. You know what I mean? I want to call them like Westboro Baptist Hate Group. And I don't even want to call them Baptist. I just want to call them the Westboro Hate Group.
Or like a cult.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's just funny because they're probably like a bunch of incestuous.
Yeah, it's awful.
Ugh.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, wow, I hated that.
Yeah, it was awful.
I hated it. So I'm just going to continue some hate.
Perfect.
And talk about John Wayne Gacy now.
Yeah.
I hate clowns.
I'm surprised you wanted to do this one knowing how much you hate clowns.
I hate clowns. I don't. Thankfully, like, it isn't mentioned a lot, so that's good. It's just
it's just a little blurb.
His crimes, but like it's still just blech to think about.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, ew. Just gonna take a sip of water. Delicious. Okay. I used to like hate water, and now that I'm pregnant and I bought myself like a liter Yeti.
Mm-hmm.
so it stays so cold, and
Yeah,
I
it's
can
nice.
actually like fit a ton of water in it, so I don't have to refill it so often. So I've been drinking like a lot more water lately, and I'm like, oh, this is so nice because it's actually cold.
Yeah, for sure.
Because like I would always forget to drink my water, and then it would be warm, and I'm like, this is disgusting. Like I hate warm water. So, but I'm starting to like actually really like water now. So
Oh, good.
as stupid as that sounds, I sound like a friggin' child. Uh, anyway, so for my John Wayne Gacy, I of course used All That's Interesting.
Mhm.
There was Katie Serena, and I also used Britannica, and the author for that was John Jenkins.
Okay.
So I only used 2 sources today.
Perfect.
He was born on March 17th, 1942 in Chicago, Illinois. Well, would you look at that? Kind of ties in with our story last week.
Oh.
Our Chicago story. He was born into a middle class to low income family and seemingly had a very ordinary childhood. Seemingly. His father hated him and would abuse him. And this started at the age of 4, where
Poor
his father
guy.
would whip him with a belt.
Oh, poor little guy.
Yeah. At the age of 7, he was molested by a family friend and he told no one because he was fearful what might happen. Obviously, he's 7 years old. He doesn't really understand what's happening, but like it's terrifying, right?
Yeah.
So, taking all of this crap into consideration and taking our knowledge of serial killers and how they become who they are, we have a bit of a problem here.
Uh-oh.
So, he was displaying a growing interest in sadism,
Mhm.
which, to those who don't know what it is experiencing immense sexual pleasure from inflicting pain on others,
Yeah.
which is not great. And
No.
he was displaying this interest when he was young.
Which is also not great.
No. He also came to realize very early on that he was gay. He had to hide the fact because being gay in the 1950s was still frowned upon.
Yeah.
And so he pretended to be straight his whole life,
Gotcha.
which, on top of everything else that he's experienced, is just one more thing tacked on.
Right.
Uh, he also, this poor guy, like, I feel bad for him when he was younger because, like, this isn't fair. But then
Mhm.
you're like, oh, well, look what he turned into. And it's just like,
Right, it's like you feel bad for him because he's, like, a little kid, and you're like, "Oh, that's sad," but then you, like, remember what he does, and you're like,
yeah, well, exactly. And it's like, I feel bad because he also had a congenital heart issue,
Oh.
which left him obese for his whole life.
Oh
And
gosh.
it was also discovered that he had a blood clot in his brain, which was treated. And despite all of these health issues, his father still abused him.
Gosh. I wonder if his father aided in that, blood clot.
I don't know. I don't know, like, yeah, I don't know if it was because of his father beating him or if it was from the heart issue and the
Yeah.
blood clot just kind of went, but
Broke
also like
off, yeah.
blood clots are also just very spontaneous sometimes, right?
Right.
So
Yeah, and unpredictable.
like we unfortunately had a family friend who got a blood clot in his leg, I believe, and then it traveled wherever and then he died. And he
Yeah.
was so healthy and he was such a wonderful man. Like he was such a
Mm.
kind man. It was
That's awful.
so sad when he died.
Yeah.
Um yeah, he was just like a very kind, like actual Christian man. Like he was
Yeah.
very, very nice.
Yeah.
And then one of my coworkers had an aneurysm in her brain and like they're all just healthy. It's just crazy how this shit happens sometimes,
Yeah.
honestly.
For sure. Yeah.
Um he finally got the courage to move away though. And yeah, he ended up working as a mortuary assistant.
Okay.
The next part is kind of gross and disturbing.
Mhm.
So sorry, everybody.
You really like those lately.
I do. I don't it's not intended. While he was doing this job, he was sleeping on a cot behind the embalming room, and one night he crawled into the coffin of a deceased teenage boy. He then embraced him and he was stroking him. And yeah, so this event shocked even Gacy, and the pleasure he felt from it. So he packed up and he moved back home and he enrolled himself in business school.
Probably should have enrolled himself in therapy, but okay, business school.
You would think, right? Despite these little issues our pal had, when when he grew up, those that knew him never would have expected for him to commit the crimes that he actually ended up committing. Because he was the pillar of the community.
Aren't they all?
Always. He was described as a mild-mannered and likable man. Insert eye roll. He eventually did graduate from business school, and he met Marilyn Myers as they were co-workers at a shoe company.
Cute.
Yeah. They got married in 1964, and Gacy worked his way up in life by working in customer service at his father-in-law's KFC franchises. And
Oh, I
then,
forgot his ties to KFC.
yeah, I didn't even know. And then he also established his own construction business as well. So,
Okay.
successful little man.
Yeah.
He was fondly remembered as always willing to help someone out, and he employed local teenagers who were in need of a job. On weekends, I wrote, ew. On weekends, he dressed up as a clown and performed at children's parties. And then
Can you imagine, like, knowing what we know about him now
no,
and him performing at children's parties, what was going through his mind while he was doing that?
ew,
I
no,
know.
no, like, no, thank you.
Yeah.
I don't like it.
Do not like.
I don't enjoy this. So Gacy and Myers had 2 children, and Ledwood was viewed as a perfect life. Well, he needed to satisfy his hunger, I guess you could say. So he joined a group called the Jaycees that was made up of other businessmen, and they partook. Oh, here's the partook again. And they partook in wife swapping,
Oh, God.
prostitution,
Oh, gosh.
pornography,
Oh, no.
and drug abuse.
Of course.
Yeah, so that was their
Sounds
fun
like a
little group.
party.
Oh, it was a nice party. He even went as far as opening up his own little boys' club in his basement of his home, which was targeted at teenagers.
Ugh.
So it was a place where they could drink, play pool, and just have a good, fun time without getting into in any type of trouble. So he was like,
Sounds like the Candyman serial killer I covered a few weeks ago.
yeah. So this cool guy is letting these teenagers use his basement to party. So
Yeah, like, why wouldn't you
yeah,
want as a teenager, like, this
yeah.
guy's so cool, you know?
I have a quote here.
'Kay.
It
I bet
says,
it's awful.
no, no, no,
Oh,
no.
okay.
Well, I don't know. I actually don't remember what I said. So, quote, he would often build up trust with his victims so that they wouldn't need to be on guard. Detective Sergeant Jason Morin of the Cook County Sheriff's Office said years later.
Yeah.
Quote, he was their employer, their friend. He may have been someone who provided them with alcohol and drugs and maybe a place to sleep at night. That's an easy way to kill someone, unquote.
Yeah?
He then began to force young men to perform sexual acts with him. And some of these young men included employees at the KFC he worked at and managed.
And I'm sure he had been grooming them for a while.
Probably. The first instance of this, or at least the first instance he was caught for this, was against a 15-year-old boy in August of 1967. He was the son of one of the businessmen involved in that weird club that Gacy was in.
Mm-hmm.
So he was the son of one of Gacy's prostitute businessmen partners, whatever.
Gotcha.
Essentially, Gacy lured this poor boy to his basement, loaded him full of alcohol, and then forced him to give him oral sex.
Oh gosh.
The young boy kept quiet until early the following year, but then he told his father, and an investigation was launched into Gacy. A few months later, he paid another employee $300 to beat up the boy in order to try and keep him from testifying in court.
Holy shit, I never heard about that. That's insane.
Yeah. Thankfully, though, this young boy escaped the assault, and of course, this just fueled the fire that was Casey's criminal investigation.
Gotcha.
In December, so almost a year after the initial sexual performance, Gacy pled guilty to oral sodomy, which is non-procreative sex, and it was illegal in Iowa for two people of the same sex to have sexual relations.
So, not the fact that he was a little boy, but the
Yeah.
fact that he was a dude.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I mean, like, he might have been a teenager, not a little boy, but like we weren't
Still.
ever told the age.
Yeah.
But yes, it's because it was illegal. So at least he was sentenced.
Yeah. Yeah. Just
And
for
he,
the wrong thing in my mind, but you
yes,
know.
exactly. And he was sentenced to 10 years in prison.
Oh wow. Okay.
Um, his wife also served him with divorce papers,
Yeah, I would
and
too.
she would luckily never see him again. So,
Good.
which is great. However, as we can predict from the legal system, Mr. John Wayne Gacy was granted parole less than 2 years into his sentence because he was, of course, a model prisoner.
Yeah, because people liked him. He was
Yeah,
able to charm them.
exactly. And I I wrote here, okay, honestly, how many serial killer crimes could have been prevented if they just actually kept these people behind bars for their allotted sentence times?
Right? Exactly.
Like, honestly,
Yeah.
how many of them never really committed anything too horrible before they went to jail? And then when they were released from jail, years and years and years before their sentence, they committed their most heinous,
Yeah,
awful
they go
crime.
crazy.
Yeah. They're like, I was locked up for 2 days. I need to go on a rampage.
Exactly.
Little shitheads. While he was in prison, he secured raises for the workers in the mess hall. He managed to get more people to join the JCs, that like weird ass club that he was part of. He worked hard to improve the prison conditions for the prisoners, and he also had a miniature golf course installed.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
He also, of course, pretended that he was straight in order to survive jail. In order for his probation to be granted, a 12-month duration, well, which was a 12-month duration, my goodness, he was required to move back to Chicago and live with his mother, and he also had to observe a curfew, which he agreed to.
Okay.
While living with his mom, he lured a young boy to his home and raped him.
Oh gosh.
Sexual assault charges were laid, but they were eventually dropped when the victim failed to attend for court.
Oh, he was probably embarrassed.
Or murdered, I don't know.
Yeah. I'm
In
scared.
committing, yeah, exactly. In committing this offense, Gacy actually broke his parole, but his parole officer never found out about it, so he got to be free.
Of course.
In 1971, Gacy moved to a home in a neighborhood in northwestern Chicago. The address was 8213 West Summerdale Avenue, which still exists to this day as 8215.
Ew.
A new home has been built on the lot.
Okay.
Yes, I was concerned as well.
That's still a lot.
But well, that's the thing. It's like, why would anybody want to live there after knowing what happened there?
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah. So while he was in prison, he kept drawing sketches of a clown and he named him Pogo the Clown.
Yeah, terrifying.
Yuck. I hate it.
I'm not even afraid of clowns, but that's terrifying.
Ugh. I hate them so much. When he was released from custody, he joined a Jolly Joker Club, which was a clown club that that would perform at children's parties. So like you would think that even back in the 1970s that there'd be some form of a background check, no?
You'd think.
Like you would think, like, where were you the last 2 years? Oh,
I was, just hanging out, killing people, doing drugs, the usual.
in jail, raping little boys. Like,
The usual.
honestly. Um, like he would, ew. He would perform at children's parties, Democratic Party functions, and he did his own makeup and just, ugh, the pictures are just gross. Like, I hate
Yeah,
it. Ugh.
yeah.
He also managed to snag yet another wife in 1972.
Oh,
And in 1975, he confirmed her suspicions of his sexuality and told her that he was bisexual, so she left him.
oh, okay.
Yeah. This wife denied having any knowledge of the crimes he committed, but she did admit to noticing him bringing teenage boys into their garage.
Gotcha.
He actually committed his first murder in 1972, so the same year he married his second wife. And he killed a little boy, I don't know why I said little, but he killed a boy named Timothy McCoy, and he stashed his body under the crawl space.
Hmm.
He then also killed a second victim in 1974, so 2 years later, who is still unidentifiable to this day.
Oh,
But
man.
Gacy states it was a young man that he stashed in his closet until it began to leak, and then he moved the body to the crawl space.
Ugh.
Now that he was divorced, though, he had more opportunity to bring more victims into his home and kill them.
Yeah.
Except his final 4 victims he tossed into the river.
Oh, okay.
His victims were young men and boys, some identifiable as they were drifters not from town, and then others were boys that worked with him.
Okay.
He lured them by pretending he was an officer or said that he had a job offer for them, a place to party, whatever. He would then drug them or make them intoxicated, and sometimes he would even trick them with a magic trick where he would handcuff them and tease them by waving the key in front of their face.
Ew.
He would then torture, rape, and finally murder his victims. This is horrible. His favorite way of torture. So he was a very large man, right? Like
Mhm.
we remember he had that condition where he was left obese his whole life.
Yeah.
So his favorite way of torture was sitting on his victims with all of his weight and then forcing them to perform fellatio on him. Like,
How?
I don't know.
I guess I don't really want to think about it that deep, but
No,
yeah.
it's just horrible. Like, cheapers. He sometimes even strangled, and then revived his victims. Sometimes he would also partially drown them before reviving them.
Oh, God, he was fucked.
Yeah, he was very, very fucked. What was even more disgusting is that Gacy would participate in some of the search parties meant for the boys he had murdered.
Oh my gosh. Of course he did.
The reason for this was that he was friends with their parents and he was a model citizen. Like,
Yeah.
did people
Yeah,
not?
he had to keep up the facade. I mean, it would look weird if he didn't help.
Yeah, but like, did people not remember that he like went to jail? Like, I
Maybe
don't.
they didn't know.
But like, they would have known. Like, where the heck was he for 2 years?
Yeah, I don't know.
But anyways, I digress. Thankfully, on December 11th, 1978, a woman by the name of Elizabeth Piest, or Piest, Piest,
Okay.
went to pick up her son Robert from his pharmacy job. Robert told his mother that he would be out in a few moments and that he was speaking to a customer about a job that would pay him twice the amount he was currently making.
Oh, wow.
And she never saw her son again.
Wow.
So later that evening, Elizabeth filed a missing persons report at the local police station. They figured out that it was Gacy Robert was speaking with, and his company had just because his company had just remodeled the pharmacy, so it was easy to place two and two
Yeah.
together.
Mm-hmm.
Officers requested Gacy come in for questioning, and after tossing Robert's body in the river, Gacy complied with officers' requests. A
Okay.
few hours later, officers were searching his home, but they found no bodies. They did, however, find a receipt linked to Robert, so they knew he was there at some point.
Yeah.
11 days later, on December 22nd, 1978, which was around 10 years after his first conviction for sodomy, Gacy, or the Killer Clown, confessed to multiple murders.
Good.
Yeah. Investigators entered his property and located the decomposing bodies of 29 individuals in Gacy's crawl space.
It's insane.
Yeah. Some were some were beyond recognition, and a dental expert was required to come in to attempt to identify the bodies.
Poor little guys.
I know, it's horrible. Ugh, just disgusting.
Yeah.
Finally, Gacy was up for trial for the heinous crimes he committed. He tried to play the insanity plea, but nobody was buying it. So he dropped the act and showed zero remorse for the crimes he had committed, and he was sentenced to death.
Wow.
Thank goodness.
Yeah.
His lawyer stated, quote, "He looked at his victims like he was taking out the trash. He had no feelings about them. He could talk about a child who's dying of cancer and cry like a baby about this child he didn't even know or never met before and feel authentically sad about this child. Then he'd talk about another child that he had murdered and he'd have no feelings whatsoever."
That's crazy.
Yeah. So in 1994, so 14 years later, he was finally put to death by lethal injection. And he ordered KFC as his last meal.
Oh my gosh.
His I don't know if you know this, but it's just like a question.
Uh-huh.
Do you know why they would have waited so long before sentencing, before killing him?
Yeah, it usually takes forever.
Because it
So
was
they
like
have
14 years.
yeah, it usually takes a really long time. They put them on death row and then they have like appeals and stuff that they can do and they have to exhaust all of those before they can actually execute them. People can be on death row for like 20 some years.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Hmm.
It's not like back in the old days where you got convicted, walked out back and got hanged.
It should be. How do you feel about the death penalty?
I'm against it. Just because we can't be 100% right all the time with the way our system is right now.
Yeah.
And I feel like executing one innocent person is worse than just keeping someone in jail for their whole life.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I don't know. I think that if all the evidence is there and points towards them being 100% guilty, then yes, it should be a viable option. But
Mm-hmm.
you have to know 100% that it was them, or they, admitted to the crimes.
Yeah.
But
My
I
only
don't.
problem is that like sometimes they know 100% and then like years later they find something that it's like, oh, no, it wasn't them. You know what I mean?
No, I get that, but I mean, it's not something that really happens a lot nowadays, anyway. So
Yeah, that's true. I was actually just talking about this with my mom the other day because she's for the death penalty. And I'm not, just because of that, because I think our justice system gets it wrong too much.
yeah,
And so
No, that's understandable, and I think that,
Yeah.
like, there's, certain cases where it shouldn't be an option, but
Yeah, it's either an all or nothing. It either is or it is not, you know?
yeah, exactly, and I mean, like, I think in this case, it was justified.
Yeah. Well, and I look at, like, people like Ted Bundy too, like,
Yeah,
yeah, he should be sure, we know it's him being executed is fine, but because execution is still on the table, that means it's on the table for, you know, the next guy, Joe Blow, who may be innocent, you
yeah,
know?
exactly, but I think that there's, like, very extenuating circumstances where it's an option nowadays.
Yeah. Yeah.
His last words were allegedly "kiss my ass,"
Oh my god.
and 6 of his victims are still unidentifiable, ensuring that their families never receive closure.
Ugh, that's awful.
Yeah. But that is my yucky story on John Wayne Casey.
Well, then again, I like to say, like previously, "Thanks, I hated it."
Oh my goodness. You're welcome.
No, I do, I find these very interesting.
Yeah, they're just
Awful.
I yeah, they're just awful.
Yeah.
Awful, awful.
Well, if you like being brought down like we did today, you can find us on Instagram and Facebook at Histories and Mysteries, or you can email us at historiesandmysteries515 at gmail.com.
Yeah. And you can also rate and review if you want.
Yes, please.
I think you can do it on Apple and Google. Unfortunately, you can't do it on Spotify, which I think is stupid, but whatever. It is what it is.
Yeah.
But we appreciate everybody. So thank you for following us and listening to us.
Yay. Well, I'll talk to you next week.
Bye.
Bye.